Hello and welcome to another episode of Out of Spec Bits. My name is Scott, and today I have my good friend Jose from Rivian Tracker joining me because I want to talk about a new Reddit post that has gained a lot of traction over the last 2 days. So, a good friend of Out of Spec, Brice, wrote a post, and it is titled "The Wet Handshake Rivian's Ignoring of Long-Term Bugs is Getting Old." So, yeah, we're here to talk about it. I'm curious what your take is, Jose, on the article. I know that you kind of wrote your own separate article on Rivian Tracker, um, because I think a lot of the issues that were brought up are valid, but I haven't experienced a lot of them.
Yeah. No, and I think that's fair, Scott. So first of all, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I mean, Brice is a friend of mine as well, and he wrote this article a couple of days ago. He linked me to it. I read it, and I kind of sat on it, only to see it kind of explode and gain traction on Reddit. And a lot of people have many different opinions on Reddit, because truthfully, I think a lot of people will go on there more to complain, right? And
I think that's a
express,
really good point.
yeah, express, dissatisfaction with something and all that. And that is true. On the flip side, there's a lot of good on Reddit too, especially on the Rivian subreddit. There's a lot of great people on there who express the positives. But
Mhm.
this article, I feel, or this post came from probably a lot of frustration that Brice had towards Rivian. And a lot of these little things that he talked about here, I've kind of heard him talk about to me personally over the course of like maybe the last year or two, right? So like these are things that have been going on for a while. And I think really what he's coming from, is, hey, Rivian, I understand that you're busy and you're doing all these great things and et cetera, but like also don't forget about like the experience, because the experience at the end of the day is so super important. And I think it's not fair for some people to have a really good experience and some people to have a bad experience. Now,
Right.
there's certain things that are outside control, right? If a high voltage battery is bad, right, and your vehicle has to be taken in for service and that has to be replaced and all that, there are certain things that are just outside, of any one person's or even the company's ability to do anything about. But really, what Brice here is talking about is software related specific things, right?
Yeah,
We're
so
talking
he's
about. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I just want to, for the viewers who haven't
Mhm.
read the post or haven't gone on, so he's talking about things like HVAC issues, major repeatable sensor failures, um, again, the HVAC climate issues, geolocation issues, and then just like sloppy UI, as far as like charging, saying that, it's ready to take up to, I don't know, 100 kilowatts of charging or whatever, but actually the car, pushes far more than that. So in your opinion, how widespread do you think that the issues that he specifically described in the article are amongst Rivian owners?
And I think really it's hard to come up with that conclusion. I'll tell you why. Because first of all, Brice is a techie nerd, kind of like me, in the sense of like we are really into, excited every month for what Rivian has to release on their new software, and like we use our trucks and all that good stuff. And there's going to be little things that we nitpick here and there that we really like and we would love to see and all that. And so I wonder to what level a person, your average consumer, right, who is on the road out there, right, maybe like you,
Yeah.
is not experiencing these issues, or you're like, well, it wasn't a problem until now. I kind of think about it. I guess it's kind of a problem, but like, I don't know. Is it really that big of a problem? And that's really
That's
what
the
it comes down
mindset
to.
that
It's
I
like,
often find myself in because,
yeah,
I obviously like I'm very intertwined in this community being a part of Out of Spec, but in my day to day, I won't think about it. And I went through each problem that Brice listed, and the only one that I sort of had was that HVAC issue after DC fast charging. Um, but I haven't experienced the sensor faults. I often drive in, misting rain,
Right.
snow. I was
Right.
just out literally on my way back. I was like, okay, I need to know if this is going to happen. And it didn't. I was able to use my adaptive cruise control in the snow. It wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And that's
but
the
I
same
think you
thing
guys
for
can be
me,
more nitpicky.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, and that's fair, right? As someone who reports on Rivian, you and myself included, right? I
Mhm.
think, we want to report on the good, but we also need to report on the not so good, right? The stuff that is unfortunate. And I feel like this is kind of one of those situations where, like, if I was posting about Rivian and I was only posting about the good stuff, right? I could have simply ignored this article and moved on with my life, right? And not cared. But there are some stuff here that's very valid. For example, he meant you guys talk about the cold weather. Now, I'm in Florida. We don't get, snow or cold weather, so it's hard for me to reproduce such things. But let's talk about, sensors, right? Issues where maybe sensors are throwing an error and all that. Or the sensors are like temporarily unavailable or stuff like that. And I haven't experienced that, right? I own two Rivians right now that are Gen 2, and I owned a Gen 1 Rivian before. And
Mhm.
in the three Rivians I've owned now in my lifetime, I've never, maybe occasionally I've gotten a thing where it's like, oh, the camera sensor's blocked due to the sun, right? Or hitting it in a certain
Right.
angle or
But
whatever.
you
Um,
do experience a lot of rain, don't you?
a ton of rain, and it's
A
never
ton of
been an
rain and you
issue.
didn't experience it. And I was
Yeah.
in
No.
Colorado. Now I'm back in North Carolina and when it snowed, I wasn't having an issue and it rains a lot here too, and I don't have an issue. So I'm wondering, is it hardware that's faulting? But then if that's the case, why is the car not notifying you that it's the hardware itself?
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of that is the programming maybe is not correct, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot of things, right? I mean, all you have to look at is 12-volt battery issues. Rivian and 12-volt battery issues go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
There's always some sort of 12-volt battery issue to the point where Rivian, um, they had to add language into the code that would kind of warn people about a potential 12-volt battery failure. But that came after the fact, after so many users and owners had that issue, right?
Mhm.
So, like, maybe that just doesn't exist, right? The vehicle just doesn't know. It thinks, oh, this sensor is not working. I guess it's blocked or covered up by something. And I don't want to say, I had this conversation with Brice and I said, like, dude, have you like had your truck like checked by Rivian? Of course, he's like, yeah, I've taken in multiple service appointments. They've checked, but
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? Like, it's easy if it works when you go there, they're gonna be like, well, it's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with this.
I don't know. I mean, what level of testing are they doing? When we're talking about Rivian service, I could go down the rabbit hole because I got a brand new vehicle that wasn't really quality checked. And then I took it in for
Right.
service. And guess what? My wiper fluid still doesn't work because they drained it and then nobody checked to see if it was working again. And I feel like
Yeah.
with legacy automakers, when I take my car in for service somewhere, I don't think, oh, do I need to check behind the service people and see, if they did it right.
Sure.
Um, so that's something to think
And
about. But
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. No, I was gonna say service is a whole nother monster to talk about for sure. And I only hope that gets better as we move into 2026 and the release of R2 because it has to get better. There is no
Mhm.
other option,
Okay, it's so
Um,
interesting that you bring up R2 because that's one of their newer ventures. Do you think they're still going to be dedicating enough resources to R1, to be fixing these issues?
okay, my true take, my
Yes,
honest take
that's
that my
that
my
I always want your
yeah,
honest
yeah.
take.
I have a take. I have a true take here, and it worries me a little bit what I'm about to say, and I hope I'm wrong. And that is, I do truly think that Rivian is going to be focusing 100%, if not close to 100% of resources to R2. And I feel like that's already happening, right? Like it is. The truth, we just don't see it, but they are.
Right.
And so what does that mean for R1? They're not going to abandon the R1, right? This isn't Tesla abandoning, like, you know, how the Model X and S kind of like were left there, like once the Y and the 3. Rivian is not going to abandon. Okay, I hope they don't abandon R1. I think R1, you know, is their flagship product. It's really, at the end of the day, you know, they want to sell it because it's going to make them a lot of money. You know, it has a high margin, etc.
These are their pioneer owners, so I would hope that they wouldn't just say,
Yeah,
"See ya."
but very quickly, I can see people in the comments who are going, but Jose, I own a Gen 1 Rivian, and boy, do I have a story to tell you. And you're right, Rivian has kind of abandoned Gen 1 owners in a way.
Oh,
and
can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
yeah,
Because I'm a Gen
I sure
2
can.
owner.
Yeah. So I want to walk this line carefully because Rivian has in no official capacity said we are no longer going to make software for Rivian Generation 1. They are still releasing software updates for Gen 1 vehicles, of course. They will continue to do that so long as they can support, right? A long time ago, when Gen 2 came out, Wasim, who's the VP of software at Rivian, made a comment saying that they will try to parallel Gen 1 and Gen 2 as much as possible, right? Meaning they will get the same features as long as the hardware in the Gen 1 vehicles support it.
Right.
We're recording this right before Rivian's Autonomy Day is happening. We're about to see a giant leap in Generation 2 and R2 vehicles, and Gen 1's about to be left in the dust. Because
Allegedly.
the hardware, allegedly. But I mean, the writing is kind of on the wall, and I wrote an article about this, and most people were like, well, it's obvious. I'm like, yeah, you say that, but to most people, it's not obvious. It's like, you know,
Most people don't think that there's that big of a difference between a Gen 1 and a Gen 2, but the hardware is completely
different. But there's so much
different
underneath, right? Exactly. And I mean, the fact that Rivian is now removing Mobileye technology from their Gen 2 vehicles, right? New Gen 2 vehicles are being made now. For those who don't know what Mobileye is, that was the autonomy platform that Rivian was using before they were launched kind of and introduced their own platform. So for a while there, Gen 2 vehicles had a little bit of both, right?
Yep.
Because they were still using Mobileye as they were introducing their own. Well, now Rivian has a couple of updates ago migrated over to their own hardware stack, their own autonomy stack. And so now they can save money by not having that Mobileye stuff in there. Well, Gen 1 vehicles has an even older version of Mobileye integrated into there. So like with more limitations than even that. We're going to see here a point where soon you may get the fun little features like Halloween mode and stuff like that, right? You'll probably still see that, but
it's just like not important to me at all.
That I agree.
I'm sorry. I love
I
Rivian
agree
so much.
Yeah.
I do not care.
I agree. It's all marketing, right? But there will come a point where like we're gonna see this autonomy stuff go ahead, and Gen 1's gonna be like, hello? How about us over here? It's like, yeah, sorry, you don't support it. And so that kind of leads into like, you know, that's exactly, you know, it's going to happen. And so to go back to your original question is like, I don't want Rivian to be like R2 all the way and be like, forget R1 Gen 2.
Well, they'll lose brand trust if that happens.
And they've already lost some with the whole Gen 1 debacle stuff. Like we just talked about, a lot of OG. If I would have been really I loved my Gen 1 Rivian and I would have kept it, but I knew the technology was not going to be able to keep up. And I was in a position where I could get a Gen 2 vehicle and do it. I know not everybody can do that. And so I did because I knew that the technology eventually was not going to be able to keep up. And
so it's interesting because the reason I got my Gen 2 was because we have Kyle's Gen 1 and it was such a solid, incredible product that we've really not had any issues with besides the comma AI, which that's my own fault. That's a, you know, third party feature. And I was so obsessed with how solid the vehicle was. I was like, I gotta get one. And and then I got my car. Obviously, I love my car. The pickup issues were, you know, neither here nor there. They're over with and done. But I didn't have a bad Gen 1 experience like a lot of people did.
I also did not have a bad Gen 1 experience. My Gen 1
You just
R1T,
knew it was dated.
Yes, my Gen
Mhm.
1 R1T was VIN in the VIN 4000s, right? Like it was in the 4000 VIN.
Yep.
I got it April 2022 or something. Yeah. So like it was a fresh like vehicle, and knock on wood that thing rocked, and I would have kept it if it wasn't for the fact that I made content and I needed to kind of I needed to be able to report on the next generation of stuff,
Mhm.
because it was going to move on. No different than I will get an R2 next year, because there's going to be stuff that I am going to need to report on for that.
Right.
But Gen 1 R1 was a solid as heck vehicle, if not more solid than Gen 2 for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but
So,
but but yeah, I mean, going back to the original post, the Reddit post, though, like, Brice makes a lot of point and a lot of good points there. And I mean, over 600 people have upvoted this. There's over 200 comments. A lot of Rivian owners, a lot of people tagging Wasim, who likes to hang out on Reddit a lot.
mhm.
Hoping that he can read this and kind of, come out and speak out on it. I don't truthfully think he will. I don't think that's his, I don't think he's going to,
That's not his
personally.
job.
Yeah, right. Although, some would disagree that, but yeah, I don't think it is. It's not his point to be like, to reply to every single Reddit comment and be like, no, you're wrong, or no, you're right.
Right. He has a
He,
tech team
he's got
to
he's got
manage.
bigger fish to fry. And but yeah, and I mean, we're gonna continue to see bugs.
Mhm.
The whole thing, though, at the end of the day, is that for every bug that Rivian introduces, I hope that they can fix 5.
Okay, so I want
Because
to pause you there
yeah,
before you finish making that point. You call it a bug. Do you think Rivian considers these accepted quirks? Or do you think that they actually consider them known bugs? Because the tone of the entire Reddit post is that these have been ongoing issues for over a year. Now, I have a software background, and a bug was treated as a problem, a true bug, and we would resolve it definitely at least within a year, right? Or we would acknowledge it to the users and say, hey, we know that this
mhm.
is a bug and we're working on it. But Rivian doesn't seem to make a statement that they're known bugs or that they accept them as a quirk.
So I'm also a software guy, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that you and I can both agree that there are different levels of priorities for issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of these issues that were listed out in this Reddit post are not 911s.
Okay, I'm
They
gonna
might they might
pull it up
they might
just so
be
I
inconveniences, right? Like, for example, if you look at the option number 6, I relate to a lot. Cabin preconditioning never gets to meet the temperature that you set the cabin to. So like, if you set your cabin to 70 degrees Fahrenheit,
Mhm.
it never reaches 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, that's a fact. It doesn't. I have tried that multiple times and it just doesn't want to.
Mhm.
Is that a 911 bug? I don't think Rivian sees it as one. I think they're like, well, yeah, that's an inconvenience,
I don't know.
but
I think
like,
about you in Florida, and I would think about children in a car or animals in a car. Like they have a
mhm.
dog mode, they have a camp mode. I feel like that is an HVAC ongoing repeatable issue amongst multiple vehicles is to me a safety issue.
But would
I
you? But is this issue? And I mean, we could sit here and talk about just this
right.
specific issue a lot, but like, this issue doesn't necessarily mean that pet comfort mode is broken, right? This is specifically just to preconditioning the vehicle, and those are they're different things in
Okay,
the way
that's
that Rivian
fair.
Price sees it. But like, for example, I have never once had an issue preconditioning my HVAC too cold, right? So when it's a
Hmm.
hot triple digit day in Florida, I set my temperature, I set my AC too low, it preconditions, and my car will get to like 60s, high 50s, right? It gets cold in there.
Yeah.
It's the opposite here we're talking about. When it's cold out and you want to turn the heater on and you set it to 75 degrees and it never reaches 75 degrees. It reaches 63 and you're like, it's been 3 hours, guys. When are we going to get there?
Yeah. I
You
guess
know?
I just took my Rivian on that Eastern Edge trip from
Mhm.
Maine where it was snowing down to Florida. And every time I preconditioned my cabin temperature, it was screaming hot.
That's
Exactly. So
awesome.
again, maybe I'm just one of the lucky ones, but when we're talking about a car, you shouldn't have ones that work and ones that don't.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, I have a lot of issues with Gen 2 HVAC, mainly, and I don't even know if you know. Let's see if you are aware of this, or am I about to introduce you into an issue that you're be like, damn it, Jose, why did you tell me this?
Okay.
When you are running your HVAC, let's just AC, right? It's hot out, you have
Yep.
your HVAC running, and you have it set to the highest fan speed. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
But then you want to turn it down just one notch. Why does
Mm-hmm.
it feel like it goes from 100 to 50?
To nothing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. I do
right.
experience that.
And
Yes.
and it's like Gen 1 doesn't have that issue.
No,
Gen 1
it
goes
doesn't.
100 to 90 to 80 to 70, not 100 to
Mm-hmm.
50. And that's where, like, I have been reporting that bug since the dawn of recorded time with Gen 2 vehicles. And I keep being told it will be looked at, but it must not be a 911, clearly.
Right. So if we look at a couple other issues in this post, like, oh goodness, let's see here. Like the USB power loop, the center console
Mhm.
USB ports are rated for 60 watts, but the controller crashes if you actually try to use that power. That is not a 911 issue.
No, and how many people are using their USB power in the port in the middle to power up something that's 60 watts or more? Probably not a lot.
Right.
We're also talking about the ones in the center console, so we're talking about the ones inside your
In
center
there.
console,
Mm-hmm.
right? If a kid or child is sitting in the back seat of the Rivian playing their Switch, and then they plug into like or their iPad and they plug into one of the USB ports behind the seats, it's a non-issue.
It's fine. Yeah. Well, again, like these, I guess reviewing these, there just aren't a lot of 911s, but I don't know why we should have to decide over a year, okay, this is a 911 issue, this is not. But when they're in the middle of developing, a joint venture with Volkswagen and they're in the middle of developing R2, I guess I can see it, but I don't think it's excusable from a
Really, yeah, and I
public
don't want to
product.
run I don't want to run too long here, but then the whole
Yeah.
conversation becomes of like how much time is being split amongst new features slash and then bug fixes
Mm-hmm.
and then the joint venture stuff being working on VW software and all that. Like it's all the same people, a lot of the same people. There's a lot of crossover. Wasim is the co-CEO of the joint venture while being the VP of software for Rivian.
Mm-hmm.
He's working on all those things, and that's just one person, right? There's a lot
It
more
could be
people.
spread very thin. Yeah.
I guarantee you that they're all spread very thin. So the question becomes, how do you distribute everything evenly? And the answer is hire more people, but you got to make money for that.
Right. Or even just pushing for better quality control and beta testing.
Yeah.
That
It'd be
might
great
be
if there was some sort of public beta testing. It'd be great if there was a QA. I don't know how much QA goes in right now. I know that the employees at Rivian get the software a little bit early, so they get to play with and test it. How many of those employees are actively submitting bugs, right? And how many of those are actually being fixed? These are all questions that I don't know the answer to, but like you have to wonder, right?
Right.
So. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to take in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the overview is Brice is not the only frustrated owner. Even people who love their vehicles like you and me experience the same bugs over and over again. And will we experience more when R2 comes? Because R1's just kind of pushed to the wayside.
And yeah,
I
and
hope
Scott, I have
not.
a question for you. And I have
Oh,
a question
yay.
to the listeners and the viewers,
Uh-huh.
and that is, it's kind of acceptable now because Rivian is a brand new car company, right? This is their first vehicle.
Mhm.
Okay. When R2 ships and it's not their first vehicle and it's their mass production vehicle, is this all acceptable? And to
Oof.
what level is it acceptable?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's acceptable.
There will be bugs. There will be bugs. There's no
There will
doubt
always be
about
bugs.
that.
There are bugs with
Always.
Tesla. There are bugs. Oh my gosh. We just
Always.
had a lucid gravity on test.
Yeah.
The software, in my opinion, unacceptable.
Yeah.
That shouldn't even be a public product. So is it acceptable? Yeah. I mean, it's the reality, right? But I don't think it can get any worse. I don't think things can continue to be ignored and that be like a long-standing reliable product. You will lose people. You will lose brand trust. You know, I really, really love the company and I really, really love my vehicle. But if I got another one, now thankfully we have 3 in the fleet and we really don't have that many issues with them. But if I got one and started to experience a ton of issues, I might go sour. I may not want to get another one. So that's kind of where I stand. So to answer your question, no, I don't think it's acceptable now as one product, and I don't think it's acceptable when there are multiple products offered by Rivian.
No, you're right. But I think with buying the first product of any company, you become a beta tester a little bit, in that sense, and that there is a level of acceptance of that. But yeah,
right.
To answer the question I asked you, I don't think it's going to be acceptable with R2 to have this level of issues and all that, because it's going to be too big at that point. Like R2 is going to be big. It's going to have a lot of people out there, and your average driver is not going to accept it or tolerate it.
Right. At any price point. It doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think we've come to learn that there are a lot of Rivian lovers and a lot of disgruntled Rivian owners. But I'm excited to hopefully talk to Wasim maybe about this at Autonomy Day. That's a tough word for me to get out. Autonomy Day.
Autonomy.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for coming on the channel again. I love having you twice in 1 week. I feel so lucky.
I mean, you must like me enough to call me back, so I'll take it.
I do. Sometimes I even text him back, folks. All right. Well, as always, thank you for watching, and catch us again on the next one as we continue to dive into Rivian bugs, hopefully some fixes and all they have to offer.
Ciao.
Bye.